All right, everyone, welcome back to the Dead Pundits Society. Today we're going to talk about the Champions League. Obviously, we have one game week left until the group phase will be complete, and then we'll get into the knockouts. And I think there's quite some interesting talking points. So, starting off, maybe let's start at the top. Arsenal, they've been looking pretty unstoppable so far. What do you think?
Yeah, they've been convincing, and I think with their last game coming up being against Kairat, I hope I'm or Kairat, whatever. I hope I'm pronouncing that correctly. I think they'll cruise to an 8-0 record. They'll probably rest a lot of their players, but even with their B team or B and C team playing, I think they'll be comfortable and finish first.
Yeah, for sure. They've had a very good campaign so far. I mean, they beat Bayern Munich, so I think they're actually already first, even without playing the last game, because they've beat Bayern Munich in that direct matchup. So it's been
Right.
a good start, and they've kind of put a benchmark so far for performances in the Champions League. So we'll see how that goes. Their last win came against Inter. I kind of had high hopes that Inter might be able to stop them at the San Siro, but Arsenal were just too strong. So they're looking good for the knockouts as well. Obviously, Bayern looking quite good as well. They won yesterday and they've won all their games but one, racking up quite an impressive goal difference. I think we talked about them in our predictions video that may have already come out by the time you watch this, and we put them as one of the favorites for the Champions League. So still continuing in fine form. Yeah, I mean, did you see Real Madrid won 6-1 the other day against Monaco? Pretty
Yeah,
insane.
it's an interesting one for Real Madrid because they were very clinical. I think out of like seven shots, they scored six goals, which is granted, I think there was a penalty in there as well, no? But yeah, they're clinical. What can I say? I actually don't think Monaco was, well, I don't want to say that they weren't terrible because like defensively, you always have questions when you concede that many goals. But Monaco actually did create a couple chances, and it's not like Real Madrid like dominated possession or anything. But yeah, I mean they were great. Mbappe was great. I think he set another record. I saw that very briefly, which will probably eventually be beaten by Haaland. But either way, a good one to have for now.
Yeah, for sure. I mean, I think he scored 400 career goals, which is pretty impressive considering he's only 27. We'll see how many more if he can get another 400. I mean, it's crazy to think that he'd need to keep scoring at a ridiculous rate to reach Messi and Ronaldo's goal numbers. Just shows how consistent they were over their careers. But I think those are the three teams that have impressed me the most so far. Liverpool also won, and they're looking in pretty strong form. A team that qu disappointed me, to be honest, was Atalanta. I mean, they lost at home to Athletic Bilbao 3-2. They were looking like they were pretty much in the driver's seat for a top eight finish, and now that might be in jeopardy. So it's interesting to see. And then there's some other teams that are on the cusp. But how do you see this top eight playing out? Are there some teams that you see that are currently in there that you don't fancy to go through, or some that maybe might pull it out in the last game week?
Yeah, it's an interesting one. I was thinking about this before we started shooting, and also based off of the games that I did watch that I do want to talk about as well for sure. Um, I think the top of the standings, like you said, I think are pretty set. I'd say those top three, probably top four, I'd include Liverpool in there as well, are like very solidly in the lead.
Yeah.
What's interesting is from this sort of like fifth to 15th, it's actually quite close. It's like 2 points between the two. Um, and for me, what it comes down to is what these teams will be playing last, right? So, like we said, Arsenal, I think they'll definitely win, but they're outside of it anyways. Bayern are playing PSV, but I think they'll be comfortable. I think they'll finish second. Uh, Real Madrid's playing Benfica, who are, not a bad team. They haven't had a great Champions League campaign though this year. They haven't been
Yeah.
in the form that we've seen them in years past. So I think that I think they'll pick up a win there. But yeah, who knows? Maybe they drop points and Liverpool's playing Karabag, and I expect them to get a full 3 points there.
Yeah, exactly. Real Madrid are playing against their former coach Jose, so he might have a couple
Yeah,
tricks up his sleeve
true.
for sure. But I think they'll make light work of Benfica. They've been very disappointing this year in the Champions League. It will be interesting to see some of these other matchups, like for example, Dortmund Inter. Like that's like could
Yeah.
be a straight shootout for one of those final top eight positions potentially, or Chelsea, for example, are also in a shot of making it or playing away against Napoli. I think that's going to be an interesting game because Napoli actually drew against Copenhagen. And due to other results, they're currently outside of the top 24, so they'll be fighting for their lives there. The stadium is definitely going to be really difficult to play in for those Chelsea players. We've seen in the past how Napoli has made their home stadium quite a fortress in the Champions League. So we'll have to see. How do you feel as a Chelsea fan? Are you worried about that matchup, or how do you feel about it?
Yeah, like I was saying, it's interesting because Chelsea currently, I think in the official rankings, we're in like eighth. So it has us right now. If things were to end, we would go through as part of the top eight. To be honest, I don't think we're going to finish in the top eight. Not only because of how close the teams from fifth to 15th are, as we said, but also because, like you mentioned, we're playing Napoli. I can't lie, Napoli in Champions League this year they've had a disappointing campaign relative to like what you would expect and relative to how good they've been domestically in the last couple of years. With that said, I could totally see us getting a 1-1 or even losing maybe. Like I don't think that's outside of the realm of possibility. Just to speak to our game from this week, I mean, I think we dominated. Granted, we won only 1-0, right? So I don't know how applicable the word dominated can be, but we definitely should have scored more. I think we didn't make enough of our chances. But
Yeah.
yeah, I don't see us finishing in the top eight, unfortunately.
I mean, against
I'd be happy
against
to be proven wrong.
Napoli, it'll be tough. I mean, obviously they have former Chelsea coach Antonio Conte in the dugout, but I think Napoli's going to be a team that won't concede that many opportunities to Chelsea, especially in their own stadium. And they actually have a pretty good home record in the Champions League. Like they out of the three games they've played, they've won two and drawn one, so they are quite good at home. Their crowd really gets
That's a good
behind them,
point.
so. They really need to win. I mean, it would be pretty disastrous for them to go out in the group stage, even like now that it's easier to go through as at least one of the top 24. So I think
Yeah,
they'll be fighting for their lives. And again, like Chelsea are already through, like whether they go through the playoffs or whether they go through the top eight, like I mean, it
yeah,
matters to a certain degree, but they might not have as much motivation as the Napoli players, right? Of avoiding
yeah,
this
that's true.
historical setback really for them.
I think also continuing on to that, I know you spoke to them earlier, but when I was looking at this ranking and seeing who do I think is going to finish in the top eight, who's going to get playoffs. I know you said Atalanta had a disappointing last round, but purely based off of matchups. I mean, they're playing against Union Saint-Gilloise
Yeah.
next. I think that should be realistically a tap in. I mean, they've been one of the worst teams in the competition so far.
Yeah.
Um, so I think they're a sneaky pick for the top. Well, not sneaky because they're not even far off of the
Yeah.
top
I
eight
mean,
anyways.
I
But
have them in my top eight, so I think they'll still
yeah,
make
me
it. But it's
too.
just I think it's very just losing at home to Athletic Bilbao, like I just think it was very avoidable, Like they could have, if they had won that game, they would have pretty much solidified their position in the top eight, and they could have even
Yeah,
drawn that game against Union Saint-Gilloise. And I think now they're going to need to win that game realistically if they want to go through. But I still think. So what are your, so okay, top four, we discussed it, right? It's Arsenal,
Arsenal. Yeah.
Bayern, Real Madrid, Liverpool, potentially not in that
Yes.
order, depending on how
Yeah.
the goal difference goes. Who do you have as
Fifth,
your fifth team?
yeah. Fifth, I'm going I hate to do it, jokes aside, but I'm going Barcelona, man, because
Wow.
they're playing Copenhagen and I just think they've been convincing. They're much more convincing to me than Tottenham are, who are obviously like
Wow.
quite highly placed. And I will say this as well. Part of the reason I go that way is because PSG and Newcastle are playing each other,
Yeah.
and those are two teams that are strong to say the least. I think that it's going to be hard. PSG, I'll speak to the PSG game because I watched it live, but I definitely see that as a game where PSG, who obviously were champions last year, could end up getting a 1-1 draw, even a 0-0 draw. I
Yeah.
could totally see that happening.
Yeah, I think that game is a draw written all over it, to be honest. And I
Yeah.
think I
Yeah.
actually have Tottenham in fifth. Like, I think Tottenham have a very good chance of going through. Like, I think Eintracht has been really poor. I think they're one of the
Eintracht
worst
have been
teams in the
terrible.
competition. They're already mathematically eliminated. So, I mean, they'll play obviously with pride in front of their fans, but how much motivation can you really have at that point? I think for Tottenham, you've got that added motivation considering how poor they've been in the league this year, right? To at least perform in the competition. I mean, I think their players are probably quite motivated having won the Europa League last year to access the Champions League. So I think that gives them that intrinsic level of motivation. Sixth, I'm actually going for Man City. I mean, that might be quite surprising. They were terrible, in my opinion, against Bodo Glimt. I mean, they lost 3-1, but that could have been easily like four
So
or five.
that was one of the games I was actually really looking forward to watching because when these games happened, what was it? It would have been Tuesday night.
Yeah.
I watched it at a friend's house as I got to meet his new kitten. It was
Yeah.
fun.
Oh,
We
wow.
did that and watched the watched the games. And we put the city Bodo Glimt game on as we were waiting to watch PSG, right? Because he's a PSG fan.
Yeah.
Um, and yeah, off the dome, dude, Bodo Glimt was actually very impressive, man. I was like shockingly impressed by them. Not necessarily in terms of like, not necessarily in terms of, overall performance, but just chance creation, taking advantage of their chances. Like obviously their striker Casper, I don't know how it's pronounced, Hugh or Ho or he's very good. He
Yeah.
scored 2 goals. But the one that really impressed me, and this is a random callback to Serie A, was
Yeah.
Jens Petter Hauge, dude. Like I maybe he didn't cut it at AC Milan and in the Serie A, but he was very good against City. He was especially impressive. I could totally see him back in a top five league club in summer.
No, he was so poor. He was so poor against when he was playing for AC Milan, rather. But
Yeah,
I mean, the thing is, it's tough to play in Bodo. Like, I know everyone makes a meme. I mean, Roma lost 6-1 there like 5 years ago or so. But like, it's hard to play there in the winter, right? Like, they have a very small stadium. It's AstroTurf. Like, the weather is brutal, and I mean, that doesn't excuse City's poor performance. I mean, Haaland's from Norway, so he should at least have been better than he was.
yeah,
But no, it was impressive to see. I mean, even considering that they were basically already out of the competition, they probably still won't make it through. But I think it was still pretty cool that they gave it their best effort. I think for me, Man City will still make it through because they're playing at home against Galatasaray. They should have
yeah.
enough to overpower them, I think, considering their firepower up front. And I think they'll go through as the sixth best team. Seventh, I've got Atalanta. I think Atalanta, as
hmm
we discussed, will beat Union Saint-Gilloise and they'll qualify. Atalanta need to be a bit careful of the goal difference because their goal difference isn't amazing, but I think they could easily score like a few goals in Belgium. I mean, USJ, like as much as I like them as a club and how they've grown, they've been really poor this year in the Champions League, quite out of their depth, in my opinion. So I think they'll be losing again. And the eighth, I mean, maybe, there's some Italian bias here. At eighth, I put Inter Milan. I think they have lost their last three games, that's true. But I think they're due a big performance in the Champions League. And I think that performance might just come against Borussia Dortmund away from home.
hmm Interesting. So I have I'd say, as I said, I have Barcelona fifth, and since they're currently 1 point behind Tottenham, the only way that would happen would be a Tottenham loss or a Tottenham draw.
Yeah.
And this has nothing to do with the fact that, all of the points you made about Tottenham were completely valid, man. Every point you made about this game is so important to them because they're doing so poorly in the league and this is their competition. And also, Eintracht Frankfurt have been terrible, one of the worst teams in Champions League so far. All of these are like the most accurate points. I've got zero counter arguments for it. I would even say to go even further, Tottenham will play their very best team. They'll place emphasis on this. They're not going to rest like their starting 11. With all of that said, because it's Tottenham, I just I just see a draw or a loss coming. I just have a feeling that they're not going to end up. I could be completely wrong, but I just feel like this would be such a classic Tottenham moment where this is their opportunity to like get through and avoid playing additional games. And I can totally see them either losing and finishing on 14 points or winning and getting 15 points. So for that reason, sixth, I'm going Atalanta because I think they'll pick up 3 points for all the reasons you mentioned and that I mentioned before. Um, seventh is tough because if I assume PSG and Newcastle draw, that leaves them on 14 each. Um, yeah, who's most likely to win of the teams that are there? I guess I'd say City with 13 points. I see them picking up a win, so I'd say City seventh, and then eighth. Yeah, eighth I guess will be Tottenham.
Okay,
That would be my,
interesting.
but maybe not. I said they might implode. I can see them getting unlucky and Sporting or someone stealing it away from them,
It seems like
or
you're
even a
kind of
you.
hoping that they will
I
implode
do
in the
hope
end,
that.
So we'll see. I mean, it'll be interesting for sure to see this last match day. I mean, I think it's also interesting for some of the clubs that are on the cusp of that 24th place, right? That last place that gives you access to the playoffs. I mean, Napoli, for example, I'm kind of in two, mindsets about it because on the one hand, it'd be objectively quite funny for Napoli to not qualify from this relatively easy league phase now that like 66% of the teams get out of it. But on the other hand, from an Italian and Serie A standpoint, we need that second spot for the coefficient to have five squads in the Champions League next year.
Right.
So we kind of need our teams to perform. So I would like to see them go through. I think they have a chance. I mean, they're playing against Chelsea, which is quite a difficult matchup. They would have been basically through if they'd beaten Copenhagen and they were 1-0 up for a lot of the game with one man extra. Delaney got sent off for a horrible foul. I don't know if you saw it, but it was a terrible
Mm.
foul on Lobotka. But yeah, I mean, I think they have a chance against Chelsea for sure. Chelsea's been good at times this year, but still quite inconsistent, I think. I mean, we'll see if Rosenior is able to find his feet at the club. But yeah, I think it would be they have a chance. Athletic Bilbao also have a chance. They're playing Sporting at home. Sporting have actually been quite good this year, so we'll have to see if they manage to
I
pull
was,
off a result.
yeah. Do you think there's also, are we, now that I'm thinking about it, I'm thinking of my list. Is there a world, right? Let's say, even if Tottenham draws, like I said, or
Yeah.
loses and ends up on either 15 or 14 points, are we discounting Atletico Madrid? I think they could. They're playing Bodo Glimt. I said Bodo Glimt's good, but,
Yeah,
you know,
potentially. We might
they
be, yeah.
they're playing at home, so they're not gonna have that away disadvantage. They could finish eighth. They could be a sneaky, yeah,
They could be a sneaky pick for eighth, I think, for sure. I mean, the only thing is Atletico, they've been quite poor this year, I think. Like also in
in
the
the league.
in the league, like they've not really been performing. I don't know. I just feel like their football is not great, but they could be Bodo. I mean, Bodo haven't been that good away from home this season, so we'll have to see how that progresses. But I think they have a chance. I mean, the thing that kind of is interesting is that you could have teams with 16 points that don't make that top eight. Like the top eight's pretty competitive this year if
Yeah,
all the teams
hypothetically,
win.
yeah,
You could have
that's true.
16 could be the cutoff, and even some teams with 16 not making it through. So we'll see. I mean, I think the last match day will definitely give us some interesting matchups. I'm specifically thinking about that PSG against Newcastle matchup with both teams that are fighting for that top eight.
Yeah.
That Dortmund against Inter Milan, I think, is also quite like having two teams that really have a lot of skin in the game, right? And some maybe matches like, for example, Arsenal against Kairat Almaty, with all due respect, like they're not really playing for that much, right? So I think Arsenal will handily win like 5-0 or something like that. But we'll have to see. We'll have to see how it goes. I mean, yeah. Do you have any
If
last
you
predictions?
no, I was just gonna say it's it is a big deal to go through in the top eight though, because you avoid these additional games, especially as, teams, and I know I'm saying something obvious here, but like that's part of the reason I'd love Chelsea to squeak, if we can get a squeak a win against Napoli, that'd be huge because it's not an insignificant number of games, you're adding what,
Yeah.
2 games more to your schedule or even more potential. No, it's two, right? It's 2 games more to
Yeah,
your
it's two
schedule.
games more. Yeah, but
Um,
still.
yeah, it's still that could make a difference though, and especially for some of these teams, as we look at the Champions League table, some of these teams that are competing for the title or the or top 3, top 2 in the
Yeah.
domestic league, it could make a big difference.
Yeah, for sure. I mean, especially in a moment where a lot of teams are complaining about the number of games they're playing per season. Like people are saying the calendar's too intense, like being able to save those two games could be huge potentially, depending also on who they're facing either side of those matchups, right? Because you have to rest players potentially in the league
Exactly.
games, or if you're playing in the cup as well. So I think every team on this list would avoid playing these two matches if they can. The
Yeah.
question is,
Yeah, of course.
will they be able to? I mean, I think partly, even going back to Napoli, I mean, I think Conte wouldn't hate missing out on more games as well and having more time to focus on the league potentially. He's been a manager that hasn't historically performed that well in the Champions League, so maybe he sees it as more of a hindrance because he doesn't have a
Yep.
realistic shot at winning it. I think with Napoli, I mean, Napoli could go far, but I don't see them going more than a quarter final. If everything goes well for them, I think quarters would kind of be their limit.
Yep. It's yeah, it's I would agree with that. I think we made this prediction in another video that I'm
Yeah.
sure everyone will see regarding Champions League predictions. And I will say the way this is all lined up, I feel very confident with my prediction. I think you were partially in agreement with me. You might have been
Yeah.
in full agreement, but yeah, man, these teams like I think Bayern's going to take it. I don't know. I'm just going to say it in this video. I'm going to be sound like a broken record, but I see this as a year where they're the heavy favorites, right? They were the heavy favorites going in as well, or one of the
Yeah.
heavy favorites. But everything aligning, the fact that their league is already done and dusted in January, right? Like, yeah, hypothetically, something crazy could happen, but it's not going to. The fact that their league is done and dusted, that they're avoiding these additional games that they would have to go through in the playoffs, I think it's building towards a strong, strong finish to the campaign for them.
Yeah, and I mean, something that's interesting about this format of the Champions League, obviously we have a very small sample size of 1 year to evaluate how it plays out in the knockout phases. But out of
Right?
the four teams that were in the top four of the league phase, three of them ended up making the semifinals. So in some ways
Really?
it might pay. Yeah, the
Is
only
it
one
that
that didn't
many?
was Liverpool. Arsenal, Inter, and
Yeah, you're
Barcelona
right.
were all in the top four. So,
You're right.
it might actually be worth it to focus on this league phase because then it sets you up for success later on.
Yeah. To be fair, you're right, and it's stupid how basic it sounds, but former players always talk about how big of a factor experience is in these games, right? Not just
Yeah.
in terms of playing experience, but the environment, the pressure, the fans. So yeah, that's crazy to think about. Last year might have been, an anomaly because even those three teams were still quite good,
Yeah.
relative to the rest of the ones that went through. But yeah, it's a good point. I'm curious to see how it shakes out.
Yeah, for sure. So yeah, these were our predictions for the last phase of the Champions League. We'll obviously make more detailed predictions for the knockouts once that we know which teams are have gone through. But yeah, let us know what you think in the comments. Let us know if maybe we're a bit too harsh with your club and you have some counter argument for us to put them higher potentially. But thanks for watching. Let us know what you thought.